Are you looking for a way to help your brick-and-mortar business drive more traffic and increase your sales? Look no further than the Receipt Paper Podcast. In this podcast, Joanne and Kyle provide their sage advice on how to make your brick-and-mortar store the hottest spot in town. Whether you're just launching a new business or trying to grow an existing one, these informative episodes will leave you inspired. In each episode, Joanne and Kyle take on a different topic related to running a successful business. They offer practical tips based on their own experience as owners of multiple brick-and-mortar locations. So whatever challenges you're facing, they have actionable advice for you. From finding a location and executing your build-out, to merchandising and customer experience, to sales and marketing, Joanne and Kyle have you covered. With helpful advice from these experienced entrepreneurs, you are sure to learn how to increase your sales and have your business running out of receipt paper in no time. Let's dive right in.
Well, hello and welcome to the Receipt Paper Podcast. My name is JoJo, and today I have an extra special episode for you all. Today, I am hosting Jamie Trull, financial literacy coach and profit strategist, for an extra special session all about how to prepare your financial strategy in 2024. Don't worry, we don't dive into all the accounting talk that nobody understands. We keep this high level and really talk about the importance of understanding your finances. And Jamie has an incredible way of making it a lot easier. So I absolutely love this episode. I want you to head over to the show notes, though, and make sure that you download the 2 free resources that Jamie provides. One is a profit planning template. It is absolutely incredible. I already dug in and I'm using it myself. And the second is a money personality quiz. Jamie's going to talk about both of these in this episode, but these 2 resources are awesome and so powerful. So I want to make sure that if you get one thing out of this episode, that it is that you download these resources for you. All right, enough of me talking. Let's dive in and let you hear from Jamie yourself. Well, hey there, Jamie. Welcome to the Receipt Paper Podcast. I am so excited to have you here today. Thanks for coming on with us.
I'm so pumped. Thanks for having me. This is going to be great.
Yes. I know this is a topic that we do not dive into a lot, which is, all the financial side of being a small business owner. So I'm excited to dive into that today. But before we do, why don't you just share a little bit about yourself and your background? I think our audience would love to hear that.
Yeah. So I call myself a self-professed numbers nerd, which I know differs from how a lot of my audience feels about numbers. So that is totally okay. But my kind of upbringing into this world of entrepreneurship came through the corporate ladder first. So I played that whole game. I was most of my career, I worked at Coca-Cola and the Coca-Cola system and, worked my way up the ladder the way that you do, right? And became a leader in finance there, one of the only women leaders in finance. And it was great for that time being, but I have always really had this pull towards, having my own business. And I won't even say entrepreneurship because I don't know that that's what it was. I think I just wanted to be my own boss and set my own rules and have freedom. And, when I had my second child, that's when it all kind of came to a head a little bit. And I had to make a decision, right? So I was working through my second multi-billion-dollar merger while I was 9 months pregnant with kid number 2 and made the decision that I wanted something different. So I'm a CPA by trade, by background, but I don't do taxes, thankfully.
Don't blame you.
Yeah, my bread and butter is really around financial strategy. So the fun parts of finance, I think, where it's things like, setting our prices and our profit margins and understanding cash flow and how to manage it well and how to really use our money to meet both our business goals and our personal goals. So those are the things that I really love to do. I was a virtual CFO first, working one-to-one, and then moved to more of an education-based company, which I love. Like teaching has just been the thing that lights me up the most. So that is kind of the very, very abridged version of the last
I
15
love
years
it.
journey.
Yes, no, I love that. I mean, I have a corporate background myself, and so I can completely relate, as I'm sure a lot of our listeners can as well. So, that's phenomenal. I know that, for me, like when I was first getting started, especially in brick and mortar business, like I loved all the fun stuff. Like I wanted to design my space and I was excited about this new business. But when it came to like anything accounting or finances, that was just so not me. I wasn't even thinking about it. So as far as like, you know, overall strategy,
Yeah.
where do you suggest like small business owners begin? If they, have no idea where to start, where should they begin with their kind of just financial strategy in general?
Yeah. And I want to say first, like the way that you felt is how most small business owners are, right? Like
Yeah.
there are I have yet to meet very many small business owners that are like, I started my business because I love accounting,
Oh
right?
my
Like
goodness.
no one,
Oh, yeah.
like literally no one, right? Of course, there are people out
No.
there that have their MBAs and things like that, but by and large, you start the business that you have because you love what you do, right? And or you
Yeah.
love freedom that comes with being able to make your own schedule. So all of the finance stuff technically like often comes secondary. We kind of learn it on the fly, right? And some of that's not bad. I think people have a lot of shame for not knowing things walking in, but the best way for us to learn really anything is oftentimes trial and error. The thing
Yeah.
that can be difficult about that though, right, is just the learning curve element and how long it can take to really feel like you know what's going on. And as soon as you feel like that, things change, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of the thing in business where it's like, okay, I think I understand this, but now things are changing.
Yeah.
So usually in the very beginning, right, we start just by getting the foundations. And it's not even about strategy in the beginning. It's just, okay,
Mhm.
do I have a system to track, not even necessarily a bookkeeping system, but something that I can use to track the money coming in and the money going out, right? Like
Yeah.
that's what bookkeeping really is. A lot of people when I start talking about bookkeeping, they're like, what exactly is that? I'm like, well, the biggest part of it is just tracking what's coming in, what's going out. We do it for taxes, but then we can also use that information for those strategic decisions. So
Yeah.
usually kind of rule number one is, we need to get organized and have some sort of process. And that process needs to be one that works for you. Either that's outsourcing to someone else to do it,
Right.
or that's creating something that you can keep up with.
Yeah.
And recognizing the fact that, that mindset shift around the fact that, okay, we do this not just so that we can file our taxes at the end of the year, right?
Mhm.
So many of us right now, we're recording this in February, right? Right now, there are people who are scrambling who have not done, quote unquote, bookkeeping all year that are,
Yeah.
scrambling to get things together for tax time. That is normal. If that is you,
Yeah.
no shame on you at all. And it's
Yeah.
because of the fact that we have been taught that the real purpose of all of the work we do for our finances is for taxes. And that
Yeah.
is so the tail wagging the dog, right? Like that is like, for me, that's why I don't do taxes. I hesitate to tell people I'm a CPA because all I get is tax
Yeah.
questions. But the real thing, the real like moneymaker in your business is not saving money on taxes. That's great. There are strategies for that.
Mhm.
I teach that.
Yeah.
But it's how do I make more profit in my business?
Right.
And the way we figure that out is by really having a system to be able to track our numbers so that we can make decisions, right? So that we can make observations about what our numbers are telling us that could spark like a new idea that we have or make us realize like, okay, this product or service isn't as profitable. I need to stop selling this or change how I'm selling this or change the price of this, bundle it with something else. Like all of that comes from really diving into your numbers and just seeing your numbers as data, right? And
Yeah.
so we have to like divorce ourselves from the shame and blame and like ickiness that we have been taught to feel when it comes to
Yeah.
and really see it as like, oh no, there's a treasure trove of data out there to help me become more profitable, pay myself more, like for the work that you're putting in. Man, I have never worked so hard in my life
Yeah.
as I have being an entrepreneur. And in the beginning, I was paid a lot less than I was paid for half that amount of work in the
Yeah.
corporate world, right?
So true. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think it's just a matter of like really changing how we look at numbers and the reason that we track them And that will help us to be more motivated to keep up with it, on a more regular basis. I'm not saying you need to be in there reconciling your accounts every week. I don't even do that. But more regularly looking at it, understanding, getting into what our profit and loss is telling us, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I mean, I know when we first started, like, oh, I hate to even admit this, but like the first year, I didn't look at anything. Like I barely even looked at our bank account. And all of a sudden it was like, I remember there was like a month where it was like we were at a deficit, things were declining. I'm like, crap, okay. So I need to get a better like lock on what's going on here. So, and I remember like it being like devastating to me to like have to look at like my expenses and stuff. But you're right, once I did, like I felt very empowered and we realized like we had so much inventory and like way too much. And so we were able to scale back and like there was so much power in understanding those numbers because, I was just running around blindly, just
Well,
making expenses everywhere. Yeah.
And that's so normal. And what's interesting about finances in general, right? It's one of those areas of life where the pain, and this is true for a lot of areas of life, but like the pain has to be bad enough, has to get to a bad enough place for us to really make change. And part of like what I want, the message that I want to spread is, oh my gosh, we don't have to get to that point, right? We don't have to get to the point where it's do or die, where we're like, I can't pay my staff because of XYZ, or, God forbid, COVID happens, or, not COVID itself, but like something that just throws us off. And then all of a sudden we pay a lot more attention to it. I saw that a lot, speaking of COVID, I have never, my business grew insanely during COVID, in large part because people all of a sudden who had ignored finances for so long couldn't do it anymore, right? They had to figure this stuff out. They had to make the hard decisions that they had put off. And so all of a sudden they were really looking for this information. So now, part of the difficult thing in what I do is like, I just want people to get ahead of this. Like I want to get ahead of crisis mode. I want to get us out of crisis mode. We're so tired of living in crisis mode, right? Like how good would it feel to have a plan, to be on top of things, to be prepared for emergencies, to not have to wait for it to get so bad that you're worried about your business closing, or you're having to lay off people, or make really tough decisions, or not take a paycheck for yourself. That's usually the first one that goes, right? We pay our people and not ourselves. So that's kind of one of the passions that I have, is how do I teach people to get ahead of this stuff and really feel comfortable and confident in it so that they don't have to wait until that emergency happens, right? To try to figure it all out.
Yeah. Yeah. Learn from my mistakes. You do not want to waver that.
But it's so natural. Like that's true for a lot of us. It takes us going to a doctor and the doctor telling us like, hey, you're not going to live if you don't make changes to your diet. And still we struggle to do it, right? Like I've seen that firsthand. And so it's just a natural thing. It's really hard to change these habits that we have. And money is one of the ones, because there's so much emotion over it. It's the hardest to change, I find.
Yeah.
But it's possible.
For sure. For sure. I think when I hear from a lot of like our students, like their thought is like, oh, I need some, big CPA or, a full-time accountant or something like that. But I think, for a lot of us, like we can start diving into the numbers. What tips do you have like for somebody that, is a small business, they're looking to scale, but they want to start diving into their numbers?
Yeah. So I think you've hit on something that's really important, right? And that is, it is really helpful to have a team around you, right? To have an accountant, to have a bookkeeper, to have these people. It's not feasible for a lot of people in the very, very beginning of your business. You're probably wearing those hats, right? And even as you get to the point where you have enough revenue, have enough profit to support outsourcing some of those things, which I'm a big fan of, you're still the decision maker, right? You're still the one who knows about and cares about your business more than anybody else. And you don't want an accountant making decision about your pricing in your niche when they don't really know, what's going on. And so I think there is a limit to what we can feasibly outsource. Now, there are roles where you can hire a CFO, but even hiring a part-time fractional CFO for most true small businesses, and I'm talking like businesses that make somewhere between say $50K and 500K or even $1 million a year, it
Mm-hmm.
might be cost prohibitive to hire a CFO, right, to come in and work in your business. A full-time CFO is probably 250K or more. Even a
Yeah.
part-time CFO is probably, tens of thousands at
Yeah.
least, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that is like pretty prohibitive. So what I love to do is teach people to be their own CFO until they get to that point where they can outsource that. But then they've already gained those skills, which will allow them to have way better conversations. You don't have to do the smile and nod with your accountant anymore, right?
Yeah.
Talk
Right.
intelligently about it. So I think that that's such an important, like that's the phase of business where you really want to learn and hone those skills. And it's so important to, get comfortable in that. So we talk about it internally in my community. It's earning your CFO hat, right? Learning, how to read your P&L or how to set your prices, like what, instead of just making up prices, because that's what we often do, right? We just either make them up or look at our competition, maybe, right? Like what's the market rate or whatever, rather than it's based on our costs, right? It's what we price should be based on our costs, especially when we're talking about brick and mortar, right? Like you have costs that might be different than the people down the street. Do not, base your prices based on that because they might be making money and you might not be, or maybe they're not making money at all.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think like where I would tell people usually to get started, and it's just a very easy thing, just start looking at your profit and loss. Or if you don't have a profit and loss, just the money coming in, the money going out, right? Because that's really all a P&L is. Like take away all the accounting, funny business, depreciation, blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, what matters to a CFO is what's the money coming in and the money going out. And just spend some time looking at your P&L. This is like the easy exercise. And if somebody's listening to this today, right, you're probably getting this ready for your tax accountant. Take some time to look at it and don't just look at it in a vacuum. Look at it compared to maybe last year, right? Like last year versus this year, if you've been in business for a little while, even last month versus this month, because there's so much more we can see and understand and observe when we're comparing it to something. A lot of people tell me like, I don't know what my P&L means. Well, that's because you're looking at it in a vacuum. It doesn't mean a lot, just staring at some numbers, right? You're like, what is this? Especially if there's some of that like accounting funny business in there that's making it not super comparable. So having something to compare back to and see trends, right? It's like, oh, why did this cost go up? Let me dig into that more. Or, oh, why did this month, I had this big spike. What was I doing then that did that? It doesn't have to be super complicated. It's just looking at it. And the more you get into it, right? The more you don't need to take a 16-hour class to learn your P&L. Just look into it, make observations. The next time you do it, you'll make even more observations. The next time you do it, you'll get better at it just by practicing, right? And it's kind of a magical thing to see people getting really like, oh, okay, I realize how this affects me. And I know how I can look into things and see, what changes I might need to make. So that's really the first thing. Just if you're listening to this today, like if you have a P&L or your money going in and out, maybe just your bank account. Just spend 45 minutes, right? 45 minutes just looking at it, write down some observations. What are you noticing? Even if it's like, oh, some of these categories don't make sense, right? Maybe you just need to recategorize some things. That might be part of what you see. But just spend some time on it and you'll be amazed at if you make that a habit once a month, let's say, to do it, your business will be completely different a year from now. Completely different.
I love that. Yeah, we started doing that a couple of years ago where at the beginning of the month we just looked at everything from the last month and it made a huge difference. I mean, it was so powerful, like what we could see. I mean, I didn't think like month to month we were even changing that much, but then when I was like looking at the numbers, I'm like, holy moly, like there are some big differences here.
And think about like if we wait to look at it till the end of the year, right? You just now missed an entire year of being able to make those, because looking at it, probably you were like, ooh, that did really well. Let's do more of that. You were able to, in real time, implement changes. If we're only looking at it annually, first of all, we're not going to remember as much. It's going to be harder to really, really be able to understand what was happening. And you've lost now a full year of being able to implement and tweak and just make things better and better, right?
Yeah.
It's a compound effect that you get the earlier you start paying attention to this.
Yeah, I mean, it's so powerful. And I know so many of us, myself included, like want to see our brick and mortar businesses grow, but we're
Yeah,
not even looking at the numbers. Like, how can we do that? And I think that's one of the biggest areas that so many, small business owners like are avoiding, and it's
yep,
really hurting and not helping, right? So, yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
I love that. What other tips do you have for people out there that maybe have never even dove into their bank account like me and don't want to look at it? Like, anything else that you would recommend?
I think that one of the things, it's kind of incentivizing it, right? So we know we're supposed to do it. So how do we incentivize ourselves
Yeah,
to actually look at it?
yeah,
That's the trouble. And some of that is knowing yourself, like what is an incentive to you
yes.
to look at it? What I do, this is my little trick, because even I will kind of get busy. There's a million things we need to do in our business, right? Like
Yeah,
it's so hard. It's one of those like working in your business versus on your business. We get so busy in our business that it's hard to pull ourselves back. But
right.
I have certain habits that I try to do that, relate to money. And
Mhm.
I essentially have tied that habit to paying myself. So if I want to pay myself for my business, I
Mhm.
have to have gone in, like made sure everything is categorized where I want it, right? Whether you're working with a bookkeeper or you're doing it yourself, I've got to do it, right?
Yeah,
I've got to pull up my P&L, take a look at it, make some observations. Like it's really just, probably an hour of work that I need to do to
yeah.
make sure that everything is in order. And then I can transfer money to myself. And so when
I
I
love it.
started tying it to that, I'm like, well, I have to take money out. And it really helps because also the reason that's good is now I know how much money I can take out because I'm paying attention to my finances and I'm not guessing anymore. So that's part of the
Yeah,
reason it makes sense to tie those things together. But I get
yeah,
a reward, right? And that reward is being able to pay myself. And the more I do this, I can see that amount increasing over time that
yeah.
I can pull out, take as profit draws out of my business, right? Because I'm paying attention to it. So then you get that reward. You're like, "Ooh, look at this."
Yeah,
And then it's a positive thing rather than a negative thing, right? It's not
yeah,
like, "Oh, I got to look at my numbers." It's like, "Ooh, today's
yeah.
payday. Like, let me get in here."
Genius. That's genius. Yeah, yeah.
It's
You're
all
like,
the little
okay, this
things, right? We're humans.
benefited
Like
me.
we're
Yeah,
not machines. We can't force ourselves to do it, but
yeah,
really just like tying things. I love like that kind of habit stacking where
yeah,
you are tying something maybe that you might not want to do to something
yeah.
you really want to do or something you're already doing routinely, right?
Right. That's great. I love that. I think if you take one thing away, you should do that one
Yes.
for sure. That's awesome. Well, Jamie, I know you are passionate about education and you do have a signature program that you dive way deeper into all of this. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So we have my signature program is called Financial Fitness Formula. It only opens once a year. And so this is the program that's really about the strategy piece. This is about becoming your own CFO, really stepping into that role and having the education and the tools to be able to do that. Right. Because it's helpful to have the education, but we also need to have the tools, the templates, the checklists, the guides, right? All of those things that we're going to be able to implement in our business.
Yeah.
So that's really what the program does. And it comes with support. So this is not a DIY program. There is an element that is, recorded, but we have coaching, we have Q&As where I answer 100% of questions. So
Yeah.
basically I get to be your CFO for like a fraction of the cost of what a
That's
CFO would be,
awesome. Yes.
right?
Yes.
And so that's something that I'm really, really passionate about. And I get to work with this group. It's a fairly small group. We like to keep it under 100 people or so usually that join the program to make sure that it's intimate and to make sure that we can give the support that people need. So it's about a 60-day program. We're starting it at the beginning of March and it only opens once a year. So we're walking into the only
Awesome.
time that it'll be open for enrollment. So I'm really excited for the new, what we call the FFF fam, the new
Love
class.
it. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's great we have people in there that are service-based businesses, but we have a lot of product-based and brick and mortar businesses too. And we do pods. We usually have at least one pod that is specifically for brick and mortar businesses,
Cool.
usually more than one,
Yeah.
where you get to meet other people and really like kind of bounce things off of each other and learn together. So that's one of the things we really love about it too, is the community aspect.
Love it. Very cool. I just think it's such a great time in the year to, I'm sure everybody has huge goals for 2024, but to reach those goals, I know a lot of us have to get our finances in order. And a lot of people, we just did our boot camp and they were saying, like, I need more funding. And I think a lot of us can probably go find that funding within our own business, you know?
Yes.
So if that's you out there, then I would encourage you to, maybe look at this as a strategy instead of just going out and finding funding. Maybe you look at your own expenses and dive deeper and with a program like this. So very
Yes,
cool.
absolutely. And we love finding hidden money. That's one of the things we love
Yes.
to do, right? It's not all about hustle, go out there, make more sales. Like, yes, there is an
Yeah.
element. We need to make sales to have a business, but
Yeah.
there can be so much hidden that we don't even know is there that can make it such that if we focus on that first and then go out and drive the sales, you're going to make that much more off of every single sale you make, right? It's the working smarter, not harder. That's what really paying attention to your numbers can help you
Yes.
do. That's what I'm
Oh.
so passionate about. I am an anti-hustle girl. I'll say I'm a reformed hustle girl.
Yes. Yes. I mean, oh, yeah.
Been there,
I
done
yeah.
that, ready to do
Yeah.
this differently. And I want to teach other people how to do it differently too.
Yeah. Yeah. It's huge. It's huge,
Yeah.
especially when you've been there before, for sure.
Yes,
Uh,
absolutely.
that's awesome. And Jamie, I know you have some free resources.
I do.
I'm going to put those in the show notes, but did you want to share what those are?
Yeah. Okay. So there will be a couple things I'll mention that are fun depending on what you're interested in, right?
Mhm.
So one of the things that I love, I have a signature methodology called profit planning, which is profit with 2 F's because the second F is for fun, by the way. So every letter stands for something. And it really helps you create your own personalized plan for what to do with your profit, right? So it's really kind of putting it in different buckets and tracking it. What do you need to save towards taxes? What do you want to be able to pay yourself? What do you want to be able to reinvest back into your business? Whether that's maybe buying more inventory or whatever it is that you want to do. Maybe it's an educational program, maybe it's training, maybe it is hiring an employee, whatever it is, right? You can start saving for that as well. And then we also have, saving for a rainy day, which is important. All of those things are covered in the profit plan, including fun. That's what the second F is. It's for fun because I love to save for fun, whether that's a vacation that I want to be putting a little bit of every sale towards, right? Or the hot tub that is on my back patio, which was the very first thing I ever bought with my fun fund.
Love it. Love it.
That was for my husband mostly,
Yeah.
to get him really into it. But
There you go. I love it.
we like to have fun, right? Like it's not all about work. And actually what I've found is that when you make fun a goal and when you're putting money towards fun, right? You're actually, because we're entrepreneurs, you're probably going to be motivated to make even more money than you would have otherwise. So you're almost paying for it, just by having that as a line item. That is a line item in my work.
It's so true. Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
I
Like
work
that's
twice as hard. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I will, if I know, okay, I need, 100 people in order, 100 sales like this week in order to take my trip to wherever that I want to go.
Yeah.
You best believe I'm not stopping at 96, right? Like,
Yes.
I will find those extra
True.
4.
Yeah.
So it's really
like that.
funny how just these little things can motivate us. And we also, the profit plan talks about giving, because I think that's a really motivating factor for a lot of people too, myself
So
included, where
Mhm.
when we build that in, we can be a lot more motivated to do even more. So
Yeah.
we have a profit plan template. I'll have you drop that in the show notes so people can
Yes.
grab that, where you can determine based on your goals for your business and your goals for your life, what percentage you want to put in each of these different buckets to help support you in what you're going towards. And we have sample profit plans in there that kind of give you an idea of, okay, if my goal is to pay myself the most, here's what it could look like. Or my goal is to grow the fastest, or my goal is to retire the quickest, right? Yours is going to look different than somebody else's. There's no standard percentages. It's really, what are you looking to get out of it? I'm really big on customizing finances because nobody is the same, right?
That's huge. I love that. That's so helpful. I think I might even dive into that one. That sounds very interesting. Yes.
It helps to just feel like, again, just the like, okay, I know where my money is going. I have a plan for it. There's like an organizational thing that just feels so good. I always have to do my profit planning and apportion out my money before I pay myself. That's one of those habits that I have, right?
Yeah.
And so it just becomes kind of second nature to do that work and put it where it needs to go. And then you never have to guess whether you can afford something. Because if I want to invest in something, I just look at my opportunity fund, I see what I have, And if I have it, great, I'm going to invest. If I don't, okay, I'm either going to figure out how to get it
Yeah.
or I'm going to pass for now and save up for the next time, right? It just takes a lot of the guesswork out of it. So that's what I love about it.
Nice. Peace of mind. That's huge.
Yes, 100%. And the other resource I'll mention, we literally just dropped this today, the day that we're recording this, but I'm so jazzed about it. If y'all love personality tests, I'm going to tell you, you need to take this. This is What's Your Money Personality. I am now a certified Sacred Money Archetypes coach. And there's 8 different money personalities, and it really gives you insights into why and how you make the decisions that you do, right? And how you really think about money. And what I love about it is there's not one that's better than any other, right? It just tells you about you and then tells you, here are your strengths, here are your superpowers, lean into those, and here are your challenges. Here are the things to be aware of, right? And I'm really excited to be putting this out in the world because I'm a big fan of almost more like a holistic approach to finances, right? I can give you all the tools and the methods in the entire world, but if you don't have the mindset and the motivation, it's not going to get done, or it'll get done for a little while and it won't get continued. And again, we're human people. We're not robots that just need like, okay, I just need this spreadsheet and now I'm good, right? We need more than that. So that's why in my programs, I really, we start by talking about mindset, and then we get into like the nitty gritty, the spreadsheets, the tools you need, the resources. But we really got to get clear on, what we want, what's our motivation for doing this, and what are the things that have gotten in the way in the past so that we can make sure that they don't get in the way in the future, or we can recognize them really quickly when they do, right?
Oh, man. Yeah, this is a good one. I'm excited about this. I need to go do this one too. I'm sure.
You need to go take it.
Yeah.
It's so fun.
Yeah.
It's so fun. I'm an accumulator, maverick, ruler. And what's interesting is you'll have one archetype that's your number one. But your top 3 really, really are the ones that are affecting you, right? The most. Okay. Yeah. And so when you dive in, I like people to like dive into all of them. And you can almost feel, when I did that, the thing that made me feel so seen was my accumulator, who's like, save. And my maverick, who's like, bet it all on black, right? Like I have a very risk averse and I have a very risky personality type. And I feel that conflict in myself all the time. Right. And I'm like, when I'm making decisions, it's like, which one of these 2 personalities is going to dominate here? Right. And then the other personality is going to make me feel bad about that decision. And so
never ending battle.
Yeah. And so sometimes like walking into situations where I have to make a decision about money, I'm like, who needs to show up here? And I kind of can decide that ahead of time. Like, all right, this is time for the maverick to shine. We're going to, be comfortable taking some measured risks. Like, okay, accumulator, you're fine. Just sit over here for a minute.
I see you.
We're not going to be destitute in a box on the sidewalk. Don't worry.
Oh, funny.
Right. But it's been really helpful for me to just recognize like, oh, that's what's happening when I feel that turmoil. And how do I lean into, again, the positives of each of these and watch out for the negatives? Right.
Very cool. Yeah. So cool. I love that. Well, I'm going to put both of these, the profit plan,
yep.
And the quiz in the show notes. I highly recommend everyone go check these out and keep an eye out for financial fitness formula coming up here. I think it's such a great time in the year to really focus on this. And I've seen so many brick and mortar business owners like fail because they don't have a hold on their finances, or like we said, one thing goes wrong, you have one tough month and it puts you in a horrible spot. And if you can get ahead of that, I just highly recommend that you take the time to invest in yourself for that. So
and I think there's like the negative side of it, which is like prepare for doom and gloom, but there's also the positive side, which is just abundance and going and having things feel easy, right? Like let's not get to the point where it becomes so like an emergency situation. Let's lean into like, okay, even if you're doing decent with your finances now, like, could you be doing better? And what could that open up for you? And so there's a whole wide world of possibilities out there when we dive into this, that it can be so expansive and beneficial for us.
I love it. How inspiring. That's awesome. Well, thank you, Jamie, for all of your insight and advice. You've left me with a ton, and I'm sure everyone else. So
I'm so excited. Well, thanks for having me. This is great.
Thanks for tuning in to the Receipt Paper Podcast, your go-to source of information for starting and growing a successful brick and mortar business. Subscribe to hear future episodes and share this content so that more people can access these valuable insights. If you're looking for more resources to help you with your brick-and-mortar business, visit masterbrickandmortar.com or follow us on Instagram at masterbrickandmortar. Thanks again for listening to the Receipt Paper Podcast. We'll see you in the next episode.